Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. This is your host, Brian Funk. I make music as AfroDJMac, and today I'm pretty excited because I get to talk to Josh Spoon. What's up, Josh?
Hey, what's up? Not too much. Just chilling out here in LA. I think it's sunny. I haven't been outside.
So, Josh, as myself, is another Ableton Certified Trainer, and man, we've bounced off of each other like a pinball machine over the internet. But I think this is really the first time we've had a good chance to sit down and talk. So it's nice to spend a minute with you here.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever actually talked. It's all been typing.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely.
I comment on your video and you comment on my video, and we Facebook chat.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely always follow your work and the producerskitchen.com. I always keep an eye out for, and whatever you're doing. Really like some of the like short Instagram videos you've done with you do a little track and a little video to go with it.
Oh, the micro beats.
Yeah, the micro beats. That's cool stuff.
It's not a lot of work. Come up with a short idea.
I tell you what.
It's usually. Go ahead.
Yeah, just that idea. Not a lot of work. Things that like are digestible and easy to like approach, like something like that. Or even the way I do this podcast is it's unrehearsed, as you're finding out. And it's not a lot of editing, so I know I can do it that way. Otherwise, the thought of approaching a project is like, oh my god, it's like this huge mountain.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I think we're both similar in that way. And even when I like see the stuff you do, I think we're both kind of like, if it comes, it comes, and if it doesn't, maybe not. I don't know. That's how I feel. I'm like, maybe I'll like do this podcast or whatever idea I have. But if it's a little bit easier to digest, I will definitely be able to do it, for long term,
Yeah.
And not just like a one-off idea.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of like little ideas that I thought I was going to do and then, never really followed through on. But the things that are working just kind of are, I guess they're easy too because they're enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like it's a good way to figure out what you like doing.
Yeah, easy and organic is kind of, so you always got to put the work in. Like it's maybe not the most fun to piece together audio tracks for the podcast or whatever, but like it's not too hard. So it's pretty easy to do.
I guess like the balance of like stuff I would call like tedious work compared to the fun stuff is, definitely in favor of the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those micro beats have inspired me to do them myself, something along those lines, but I actually haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, just take like, I don't know, like 15 minutes. Like I usually just come up with like a drum track and then an ARP or like a chord idea, and then, just try to tweak it out a little bit. The most time I waste actually is making the video.
Right.
So it's either like I like maybe perform it like 3 or 4 times if I do it, live recorded, or if I'm doing videos with like the Isotonic Studio stuff, I end up geeking out on that, and that takes more time than the actual song because I'm like, oh, it'd be cool if this came in and the color changed, and I realize it's been 3 hours for a 1 minute Instagram video.
You know what? Like until you start trying to do things like that, you don't realize what goes into it.
Yeah.
Like the I kind of when I teach music or sometimes when I'm talking to someone that hasn't done it themselves, like they're always a little surprised on how many hours go in to come out with like just a couple minutes of sound.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't know if you do this, but I always go in thinking, oh, I'll just like do this like 15 minutes and it'll just be really fast, and then you just kind of fall into a hole.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing, like we were talking about, but you're just kind of like, oh man, this thing that I said, I'll just hop on in live and I'll just, mess around for a little bit, and then I'll go for a walk, and then, the sun's down.
You going for 15 minutes, and, after 15 minutes, 5 hours have passed.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny.
But it's a fun experience, so it's not really a problem, If it was something I didn't want to do, then I probably would have a very hard out at 15 minutes, It's like I'm gonna wash dishes for 15 minutes, and I'm pretty much gonna be done right after that.
Yeah. That's like one of the sad ironies, the way time passes or the way we perceive time, and that the things that are like painfully difficult seem to take forever, yet the things that are super fun just slip away and the
Yeah,
time melts. They should have got that
yeah,
the other way around when they like made
right.
time, you know?
Yeah, that would be much easier. It's like I went to a concert on Sunday. I went to see Stevie Wonder, and it was like a 5-hour concert,
Wow.
if I can count correctly. Yeah, 4.5 hours, I think. And as it started nearing the end, because he did 2 albums, so you knew like when it was going to end.
Hmm.
I was like, ah, man, this really went fast. But when you look at the time, you're like, wow, that's not fast at all. It's really a lot of time. But when you're enjoying it,
Yeah.
once it's over, you're like, oh man,
That's pretty cool. Stevie Wonder, huh? That must have been a fun show.
yes, it was. Yeah, Stevie Wonder, Pharrell, Common, Dave Matthews came out, Tony Bennett. Yeah, it was pretty.
Wow. So a whole
A
like
lot
host of
of lot of
characters.
checkbox checked.
Yeah. I saw him perform once, but it wasn't a Stevie Wonder show. It was a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame concert they
Uh
did
huh.
at Madison Square Garden, and he came out and did a couple songs. I think he did like Superstition. Um, I think Higher
Who was
Ground.
inducted that year?
You know what? I don't even know. I don't remember. You
Yeah,
know
like
what? It
all I
was like,
remember is Stevie.
well, there's a few people that stick out from that show, and like it's funny because you're seeing like a crazy amount of like legends on the stage, and
Yeah.
when I think back to that show, and it was like probably like 8 years ago now. Um, there's a few that stick out, like Stevie Wonder. I remember. Probably the person though that kind of like knocked me off my feet the most um, was when Simon and Garfunkel played.
Oh wow.
Garfunkel, his voice, my God. I mean, they would, the whole bill was top notch singers, but when he came out, I think he was singing "Bridge Over Troubled Water." And just the way his voice was, just like an angel, like appeared and soared out through the arena and flew around or something. It was just like, man, like
Yeah.
it was a real standout moment. Just the sound of his voice, how smooth it was, and just just beautiful voice.
So I don't know if you know this. Why do people hate on Garfunkel so much?
Do they?
I've always heard jokes like I feel like Garfunkel's kind of like Ringo Starr. Like people
Uh-huh.
always are making fun of Ringo. People are always making fun of Garfunkel for some reason. I just don't know what the reasoning is.
I don't know. Maybe it's like Paul Simon did his own solo career, I guess. I think he wrote most of the music, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe people just think he's like a silly sidekick or something. But, I would definitely beg to differ.
Oh, nice.
Don't know. It's funny you mentioned Ringo Starr because I always, if someone asks me who's my favorite drummer, I always think of Ringo Starr. And he gets made fun of a lot for his drumming, like, oh, what did Ringo? Like, I think even in the Beatles, they kind of teased him a little bit because he was the new guy. um,
Yeah,
but
his drumming is it's very different, especially for the time, at least from what I know of the 60s. And it's kind of odd, but in a good way.
yeah, I think it's like, I just love how appropriate his drumming is, that he never gets in the way of the song. Um, and this might be like a little like bad blood, like playing with various drummers throughout the year. I mean, I play with some great drummers, but like there's some drummers that like think that the whole should be a drum solo.
Right, yeah.
And I always get nervous when a drummer has more than like 3 drums. It's like, uh-oh. They're gonna they think this is like the drum show.
You're like, hey, are you done? He's like, no, I got more drums in the car. You're like,
Yeah.
oh man, this is
Yeah,
gonna
my
be trouble.
buddy's bringing the other van of drums over. It's like,
Right.
oh no.
Yeah, like, yeah. Now that you say that, that is pretty interesting because I never feel like when I listen to the Beatles, I'm hearing too much drums.
Yeah.
It's just he's playing the right amount that needs to be played along with all the other people in the band. There's no time really where even when he let's see, I'm trying to think on the spot which Beatles song I'm thinking. The one that's uh dang, it's like love you.
Oh yeah, that's the end. That's like the
Yeah,
last
yeah.
song and like the only
So
drum
he
solo.
doesn't he, yeah. So it's like very few times he has a drum solo and kind
Yeah.
of stands out. And even then it's like this kind of cool vibe that I think has kind of shaped a lot of drummers in a lot of way.
Mm.
Especially in my opinion, a lot of hip hop drums as well are kind of like that kind of scattered kind of tom solo type of thing that Ringo did.
That's cool. Yeah, I've definitely extracted a bunch of grooves, inside of Ableton Live off the Beatles, just because I love like his feel. It's just this like kind of like little bounce or something.
Yeah, like everything. I love 60s and 70s drums. Like that's my kind of
Mm.
Achilles heel sound is like just the way they sounded like wet, but also like tamed. They're kind of like dry, wet. I don't know how to really phrase it, but like Ringo's drums are definitely, to me like top notch sounding. Especially for like the way I kind of came up, listened to a lot of hip hop and those kind of like tight but wet drums. So
Yeah. There's a really cool there's a video, I think it's on reverb.com, like how to sound like Ringo Starr on the drums. I'll have to
I'm
look
have
this
to,
up and send you the link. But he takes you through like the early days of Ringo's drumming and then like up and through like Abbey Road.
yeah,
And one of the things he liked to do is put like these tea towels on his drums just to like kind of mute them, make them like kind of a little dead sounding. And yeah, I hear you on that. Like some of the drums and one of my favorite like drum production albums is Harvest by Neil Young. And
okay,
it's just this like, there's definitely a sense of space to it, but it's very dry and very just like you're sitting right next to the drummer.
right.
Um,
So in the last podcast you were talking about you. So do you drum a little bit?
a little bit, yeah. I've
A little bit.
like I keep it real simple, play just the beat really. To give you an idea, right? My drum set is just a kick, a snare, a hi-hat, and crash and a ride. I don't even have toms set up right now, just because for one, my toms suck. Like I've got a kind of cool kit. Like it's the kick drum is a Pearl from the 60s. That was my dad's. It's this
Okay.
really little kick drum and it's quiet, which is nice, like because it's in my basement. And he also had a Ludwig snail, Ludwig snare, not a snail. And I think it's actually the drum that Ringo was using for a little while. So I love the drum. And then I just have some cheap cymbals that are dull enough that I kind of like them.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a little bit. Just I wouldn't really be like I'm a drummer, but if we're all jamming, I can keep a beat.
Yeah. I first, well, I guess my second instrument was drums. So
Yeah.
I played those for a really long time until I moved into an apartment, and then it just started going downhill from there. So I still play from time to time, but yeah, like that's all you really need. Hi hat, crash or ride, crash ride,
Yeah.
and kick and snare. And especially with, if you got a computer, you can kind of bang out everything there, edit it, throw in some toms from somewhere else if you
Sure.
want
Yeah.
to, or sample it in. Like the other day, I'm not that great of a guitar player, so I usually play one note segment at a time or one chord segment. So I'll just like, and then wait, because I can't really move my fingers fast enough to record everything and just stitch it together.
Right. That's a good idea. I did that. I was having trouble doing like a really fast picking. I wanted like this like kind of palm mute clean guitar. So
Yeah.
I just made a whole, instrument rack. I was like, you know what? I'm having trouble playing this real tight. So I made a whole instrument rack. of just like palm muted electric guitars sounds, and on a clean setting though, not like a distortion.
Yeah.
And
Is-
yeah, I'd use that to kind of cheat, if if you want to call it cheating, maybe from the guitarist
yeah,
perspective.
depending on the point of view of the person.
I said that, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I don't really believe in cheating and making music, so I think it's all
I
fair.
I only feel like it's cheating if someone says like, I guess technically you did play it too, so you could say yes, I did play that if someone
I did
asked
that.
you. But so I guess it's really hard to get around that and call at any point cheating because you played everything.
Yeah, I guess it's like a mistruth or something.
Yeah, I guess if the person said, "Did you play exactly what is on the recording right there?" Then you'd be like,
Okay.
"No."
Was it one take?
But
Well,
yeah, but who's really going to ask that question?
yeah, I think really no one cares.
Yeah, as long as it's good,
Yeah,
they don't care who did it.
yeah, like definitely not for anything I make. I'm never really making music because I'm trying to be like some kind of virtuoso or something. It's more just I'm trying to make a song.
Right.
So whatever road it takes. Yeah.
I think that's where I'm stuck right now. I'm trying to write a song, but then I'm also like I'm starting to perform more. Like I have a monthly, or where I guess we're gonna do it every bi-monthly or something. Is that by every other month? Whatever that's called.
Yeah,
But yeah. So I'm trying to figure out. Okay, as I'm writing, I'm getting in my head like you might need to perform this. So then that kind of puts me in a different path than I used to be in, where I just go, well, I don't really need to perform this. I'm not worried about it. Now I'm like, ah, crap. If I if I write this way, is it going to be performable?
That's a funny thing you mentioned because I think that goes through my head a lot without me realizing it. Where there are certain things like I kind of have my little like setup for kind of live performance jamming kind of thing. And when I'm in that space, everything has to sort of be able to happen, as I'm doing it. But then there's kind of like when you just experimenting and that like, you're not worried about those sorts of things. You're just taking it where it goes. And this might not ever be reproducible in an interesting way.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to the Beatles.
Yeah, that's what they did, right?
Yeah, it was like after a while, I was like, I don't really know how. We don't really want to tour, so we don't really care how this could be performed.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's I know people like that, and there's some freedom in that. But I like kind of being out with people and seeing what they think face to face.
Yeah, there's
I like,
definitely a real satisfaction to being able to take it out and play it. It's easy to become like something of a like hermit or recluse with your music, where you're just like indoors in your little space and never really getting out with it to take it
yeah,
out.
I did that. I did that for like 2 years, pretty much. Like I was in a crew, and then it dissolved, even though we never formally dissolved it. And then I got sick and was teaching, and so then I just kind of stopped going out and performing, and mainly even seeing shows like local shows. So now I'm like getting back out there and trying to get back to performing. So it's like this whole new, it's like starting over again, trying to figure out how to go about it. And
Right.
what should I play? What should I not play? Should I bring my bass? Should I not bring my bass? Should I bring my sub 37? Should I not bring my sub 37?
Yeah.
Should I just use all hardware? Should I, it's just like, it's kind of weird.
Have you made any sort of
Trip.
decisions? Or are you like kind of right now in the middle of figuring out where to go?
Well, I've been kind of, so the crew I'm in, Sample on Hold, we did shows from July till October. And then because of the holidays, we took it off, and then we should be back in February. We're still trying to get confirmation with the resident here in LA. And so every month I kind of just tried out different stuff because it was my first time performing on a consistent basis. So like the first month, it was just my trigger finger using effects. the second month, I brought my Sub 37 out with a bunch of like program beats that I already did and sequences that I ran out to my Sub 37, so then I could just tweak like the ADSRs or the filters and the amp and everything.
That's fun.
And then just do stuff on the fly. And then another time I did something else weird. And then the last time I just had surgery, so I took it pretty chill and just had like my APC 40. So currently I'm just experimenting. So every time there's a show, I'm going to just try different things. So next time my hope is to do a cover and play bass as well on top of my own stuff. So
Nice. Well, that's
yeah,
fun
just
though.
trying to,
So you get like 2 months to sort of figure out what you want to do and get it
yeah.
to performance level.
So yeah, so probably 3 weeks before.
So the night before, I'm
Decide.
up all night.
Yeah. The night before, I'll finally decide. Go, oh, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, and then stress myself out. But yeah, I am devoted to the cover. I'm like, I want to do a Radiohead cover. I
Cool.
feel like that'll push me to be more vocal in performances, because I'm kind of afraid of my own lyrics. So I'm like, if I sing someone else's lyrics, that'll butter me up a little bit, and then if I get some love, then I'll bring out my own lyrics, and then hopefully I'll have a thicker skin.
Right. Do you know what
From
song
there.
you want to do? Radiohead?
A bunch, but I'm trying to figure out which ones I could probably handle. I'd like to do probably starting maybe like All I Need.
Okay, cool.
And I'd like to do Nude at some point, but I don't know how I want to do it. I think that's usually the problem, is like, how do you want to do it? Do you want to do it like the album, or do you want to do like your own rendition of it? Do you want to do like some of those really awesome ones you've probably seen where I forgot the lady, but she does everything like on the fly and records all the tracks, and then loops it and sings on top of it, So there's a lot of different options, but it's kind of like, which one do you want to do?
Yeah.
And that's usually my struggle of like, which one do you want to do?
Right. There's a lot of
So,
ways you can go.
yeah.
Well, that's cool though. Those, especially Radiohead too. I think a lot of their music is so, open to interpretation, because
Yeah.
it's pretty tough to kind of nail what they did, and yet still like the songs are there. They're really identifiable. There's the verse, the chorus, there's the melodies that are pretty clear. It's a fun combination of like weird experimental, yet still has like kind of like a pop sensibility
Yeah.
living in
And
there
that's,
somewhere.
yeah, that's what I like about them. And like John Frusciante's When Shadows Collide with People, and other, even Beck, different artists that still use like electronic music or experimentation and things like that, but you can really boil it down to one instrument and a voice.
Right.
You could just show up with a guitar and just sing, or with a piano and sing, and you could do a Radiohead song, or like a John Frusciante song off of that album. But then you can also, if you wanted to, have an orchestra, or do it like they did with, mellotrons and, Euro rack and all these different things, tape loops. Like, you could do that as well. But like you said, it still boils down to a basic song at the end of the day. And that's what I'm trying to figure out how to do. Like, write songs that are still, kind of going to where I began as a solo artist, but can be really boiled down to, if I wanted to, just show up with a guitar or something like that and just do a song.
Yeah, I think that's a good mark of a good song, where it can live in a lot of different worlds. Not to say that if it can, it's not a good song. I mean, there's definitely great
Yeah.
songs like that, but you kind of know. For me, like, I'm like, oh, this must be a good song because it still works. I'm just playing it on guitar instead of
Right.
like all my crazy electronic distractions, like kind of hiding maybe a fault in my songwriting.
Right. Yeah. That's definitely a fear too, of like, am I hiding behind all of this stuff and all these, all this saturation and delays and all this stuff? Um, or is it just aiding the song? And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. Uh, Nine Inch Nails is full of like all sorts of noise, but it's still good songs. So it's not to say that that's a bad thing. But I think personally, when I think most people are creating music that's a little bit more production heavy, you wonder, like, am I helping the song or am I hurting the song?
Yeah, true. There's like a such thing as adding too much spice and too many condiments to your music.
Yeah. I
There's
had
a
a
great
okay.
episode of the podcast Song Exploder that just came out. If
Oh,
you ever listen to that one,
yeah, yeah.
and Trent
What's
Reznor's
the
on
new
it
one?
with Atticus Finch. I'm sorry. No, wait.
No, it's
I'm I'm I'm
Atticus
I'm, I'm
Ross,
confusing
right?
the characters in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah,
That's
I was
not
like
too,
Atticus. I'm like, wait,
wait a
I
minute.
know that name, and it
Yeah.
doesn't sound like that person's real.
But it sounds right. Yeah, man, I'm an idiot. But it was like just like misfire connection in my brain. But oh man, it's so good. And like they talk about like their process. They isolate the tracks, and they it's a song. And man, the way Trent Reznor describes like how they kind of come up with like a setting for their music. Like, all right, this is a song and it takes place in this world, and
Yeah,
I listened to that podcast and I was taking notes. I was just like, man, this is awesome. I
yeah,
think
I
I'm
did
gonna do a
actually
podcast on the podcast one of these
a
days.
podcast on
Yeah, just
that particular podcast or
yeah, no, that
the whole
particular
podcast.
one, just because like some of the I made notes on like some of the things he was saying and just his process, and I was just listening to it. I was like, whoa, this is good, and I don't want to forget this because I was making dinner while I was listening to it, and I was just stopped, and I was like, wait, I gotta pay attention to this more. Too much energy
Yeah,
stirring the
I
sauce.
actually did. I did actually listen to that one. Was it Friday or whatever? I thought that was interesting too. Yeah, how they come up with a theme and the idea he was saying about what did he say? He did a 10-step loop and then just let it kind
Yeah,
of play. And I was just like, that's pretty interesting to kind of, because I like weird stuff like that to where you're like, oh, where I thought the one was on this loop isn't where it is, but it melodically works out to where it just seamlessly loops in this weird kind of way. And I did think like, oh, I should go back and see what type of things I can glean from this. But I did like the setting the mood, which for me, as I said earlier, is kind of a hard test to just say, I'm going to do this and not let my mind wander. Like, I'm going to do, I don't know, enchantment or whatever.
yeah.
And then actually go all the way through to the process and not deviate to something different. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's a part in the Berkeley online course that I'm doing, the Advanced Music Production with Ableton Live course, and one of it's to plan your final project. And
Hmm.
it's like a lesson I really need to pay more attention to myself. But it's like you're just planning it. You're like saying, what kind of song you're gonna do, what instruments you're gonna do. You're just planning it. And I mean, it's much more like the way I used to work, being in bands where we used to have to actually buy studio time and it was
Right.
expensive and precious. So we knew exactly what we were doing, what part was going to play here and there, who's going to play what instruments. Because so much of the time now I show up and to do some work and I'm like, let's see where the breeze takes me, find the flow. And half the time I just wind up making weird noise or just exploring like samples or something and not actually making anything.
Right.
But that
Y-
having that direction is like so important for me to get work done. And I just love the way he thought of it, almost like I guess a little bit like film scoring or something. But it was just when I heard him say it, just the way he articulated it, I was like, oh, that's gonna help. I gotta write that down.
Right.
Like, what
There's
world am I creating here?
one of the so I teach also at Musicians Institute, which for some reason is always hard for me to say. But one of the vocal teachers there, she put me on this book that I started reading that I need to finish. But one of the things it said was come up with your title first.
Hmm.
to help you figure out where the song's going to go. And I found that to be very helpful because I usually like create bundles of work and themes. So I'll have like right now I'm trying to work on a theme for an album, and I'm just going, okay, so if I make anything, so this is two ways that I go about it. I either go, I'm just gonna make stuff and then find out how they work together. Like, oh, these 5 songs all are kind of 8-bit sounding. All right, maybe I'll do an 8-bit EP or something. Or these songs are all sounding sad. Maybe I'll do a sad EP or whatever. And then, or I'll say like, this is the theme, and then everything I create has to be based off of this theme. And so I thought that was kind of interesting because I've worked that way on albums, but never like individual songs, forcing myself to say like, this song is called Home. And then it's like, okay, everything, the sound, the words, everything has to kind of go on this theme of home. And whether that's a nostalgic view of home or I'm happy when I'm home or any type of thing like that, it's like everything hinges off of that kind of concept. So that's been kind of helpful for me when I force myself to stay within those boundaries. But
Yeah, I like that a
themes
lot
and titles and stuff.
because you can almost like turn your sounds and tracks or instruments into like characters almost, where like,
Yeah.
this is like the peaceful bed, that's like the pad or something, and then maybe there's like a little tension that comes in, an argument happens and that's like some weird noise or something. That sounds like, I like that a lot too. That's something I'm gonna have to remember. What's the name of the book? Do you know what the book was called?
I'll have to, oh man, no, I don't want to say because I'm probably just make it up.
Okay. Well, maybe tell me later. I'll put it in
Yeah,
the
I'll
show
tell you.
notes or
Yeah,
something.
you can put it in, but I don't think it's even available anymore.
Oh yeah.
It's like out of print. I had to, find it in the depths of the internet. So, but I could give the title and it's findable because I found it somehow, and it wasn't even like a torrent site or anything like that. So I
Right.
just found it on a website.
Well, at least got a nugget of knowledge out of it.
Yeah,
Come up with a
I gotta-
title. Yeah. But
gotta read the rest.
it's kind of funny. Like a lot of the times that I'm working lately, it's almost in reverse, I guess, where I'll start making some music, and then I'll go on the mic, and I've got like some variety of vocal effects I can just kind of turn with a few knobs, and
Yeah.
I'll just kind of blabber. It's just gibberish, just whatever. Just I'm making consonant and vowel sounds, and I'm trying to really
Yeah.
just figure out like where those like hard consonants go and where the long vowels go and where the little melodic phrases are. And like after a while, you just kind of get into this, and it starts becoming almost like a stream of consciousness, and you're just saying anything. You might be like singing in the mic and being like dinosaur donut, whatever comes to your mind, you're saying. But like it starts to evolve, and every once in a while you say something and you're like, oh wait, there it is. It's got a nice rhythmic flow to it. It fits the melodies I've been playing around with, and then I kind of bring everything around that. So the bad thing is this is a really good way to like never finalize your songs. But the good thing is like it kind of lets the song just sort of like blossom on its own without like forcing it. So sometimes, you take out your pen and paper, you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to say. And like,
Right.
you go to sing it or something and it just doesn't really fit for whatever reason. The words might just not flow properly. But this way, like, you just kind of blabber, and then you realize like what you were saying sort of sounded as if you said this, and then you kind of go with it. And it's almost like an inside out version, I guess, of coming up with the title than doing the music to fit that.
Yeah, I find those songs. I found out about that through, I think Erica Badu talked about. That's how she writes. And then I watched a video, and I'll have to give you the link to this as well, for when Solange did her last album. She wrote a lot like that. They would just be playing chords and stuff, and she would just kind of hum.
Yeah.
And then she just came with the words. And I thought that was a really good process. And I feel like the artists that do that, their words are very much in line with the feel of the song, as opposed to, I think, like you said, like writing it down and then trying to get the chords and everything to kind of go with what you're saying or try to force what you're saying to the chords. It feels like, if you've listened to like Solange or Erica Badu, they're very kind of organic sounding.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like, the vibe that you get from it, as opposed to like going the other direction. For me, I've done that, and it's worked in some cases, but I like currently I'm doing the podcast, and my wife is in the room right behind me, and so a lot of times I have a small apartment. I'm feeling very self-conscious. I'm also by a window, which goes out into the common area of the apartment complex I'm in.
Okay.
So I feel very self-conscious sometimes. But I'm just like, and then I'm like, oh, I need to, find words to those. But I'm like, oh, people heard me yammering for about an hour. So then, kind of like you're saying, in my hard part about it is then, like really turning those into words, because I listen back and go, oh, I was whispering and I don't know what I was saying, and I get self conscious and I just go back to making drum beats or whatever. So
I hear you.
A constant struggle for me.
I've got it set up where all my stuff is in the basement of my place, and
I wish I had a basement.
I've been lucky to have one. Even like growing up, my basement was where the band always practiced. So I mean, God bless my parents. Like, I didn't realize how lucky I was that they were the parents that were the ones that were willing to put up with 16-year-old kids making as loud music as they can, all the way up until like our 20s. But the way I've got it is there's like just off the side, I get like just a little TV with some video games hooked up, and my wife is playing the Breath of the Wild Zelda that came out on the Wii, or the Switch and the Wii U. So I've been doing a lot with just like a bunch of synths. I have hardware synths hooked up, and I've got PA speakers, but it gets late at night. I don't want to have it going too loud, so I put on the headphones. And the other night I was doing that. I had my mic and I'm just like saying, blabbering, and I'm in my world, I was lucky enough to get lost. But then I had that moment where I was like, wait, what am I saying? And she's just like listening to like this like crap come out of my mouth. She's like gonna have some weird thoughts about our marriage, and I suddenly
she's like, who's this weird guy?
Yeah, like I started to like almost feel like bad for her. Because I'm like, what am I saying? I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. I don't even remember. I'm just letting it fly. And then all of a sudden, like my creativity just plummeted. Like I got in my head, And once I was in there, I was like, I don't know. Let me make another synth line.
I think that's the hard thing when I have conversations with musicians. It's just getting out of your head. Like a friend of mine told me, he said, don't ever think about the end of like what you're going to do after you finish the song. Don't think about who you're going to release it to, or where is it going to live, or any of that. He's like, just be in the moment and do the song and enjoy the song. And then when you're done, it sucks, you don't have to share it with anybody. If you think it's great, then figure out what to do with it or whatnot. But I think, like when you are worrying about who's in the room, or how is this going to play, or is this in your wheelhouse, or whatever the case may be, your creativity just sinks to the bottom.
It's beautiful advice, but it is not easy to follow.
It's not at all. I think, as both of us being teachers, it's sometimes weird sometimes when you give advice and then you don't like take it for yourself. You're like, oh, like you're saying, you're reading something out of the class, and then you're kind of like, wait a minute, I need to do that.
I'm like telling everyone, this is really great. You got to try it. I know it's weird because I don't do it. But yeah, it happens a lot. I've been trying to be a little more like also a student in my classes. This even goes in my high school classes, where I'm trying to also like, be doing the work too. It does help a little bit, because it helps me like understand like from a student's perspective, like what the difficulties are in the things I'm telling them that I think I understand, and then I realize that I know the words, I know the routine, I know how to say it, but actually doing it sometimes is really tough.
Right. Yeah. It is kind of interesting to because I never did you go to school for music at all?
No, when I was going to college, I went for I started. I had no idea what I wanted to do, and then I was doing English, which I liked because I saw the connection with like lyric writing and things like that. But I only really just kind of picked up on whatever elective I could take that would fit. I would take.
Yeah.
I took guitar lessons for a while. In my early days, probably I don't know 7 or 8 years of that, which was really helpful. But nothing like formal, like nothing that
Yeah.
got me a certificate or anything.
So, yeah, for me it's always interesting cuz I never like I was in bands in middle school and high school, or after first year of high school I dropped out of band, but I did it all through middle school. So I had training on how to perform. I just knew how to read like what was in front of me, but if you talk to me about chords or subdivision, I had no idea what you were talking about. So, um yeah, most of my life I just kind of was like self-taught and learned at my own pace. So coming into a school environment's interesting because everything is timed. You have 10 weeks or whatever amount of time to
Uh-huh.
accomplish these goals. And so it took me a while to kind of, like you're saying, understand their perspective and what they're going through, because I was like, why is this so hard for you to get? And then I realized, oh, yeah, you're taking four other classes as well on
Yeah, yeah.
four other things that you are totally new to. And you probably have the pressure of, you telling your friends that you're going to go to school and then, be really awesome and, just be on, Seth Meyers the week after you get out of school or whatever. And, it's just like really hard for me to understand, but it took me a while to go, oh, okay. Because people would ask me, like, how did you learn live and how did you, learn how to do this or get good at this or whatever. And I was just having fun every day. There was no pressure
Yeah.
on me monetarily or from my parents or from myself or, this was not pre-internet, but this was before the internet was really like, I don't even think SoundCloud existed really or anything like that. So it was like mid 2000s.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like do your thing and have fun, and that was my only goal. So once I started realizing some of that, because I would tell people like slow down, chill out, and they're like, I have 10 weeks.
Yeah,
Or
right.
I'm from Sweden, I have to go back to Sweden in 10 weeks. Like we can't slow down and chill out. Like we have to pedal to the metal.
Uh-huh.
So it was an interesting learning process of, being able to distill things down and try to figure out how to explain things to people who may not have known much of anything and get them into like a decent working shape that works to their, kind of lifestyle. Where for me, it took just 3 years of me just having fun instead of 10 weeks. So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that a good deadline is awesome in helping you progress and move forward. But it's also tough when everything has that deadline. Like you said, you got your four other classes that you're taking, and they're all new to you. And just, you know, as much as you can explain a new concept clearly, it's still a new concept. And it's, something maybe you've had years and years to really like let settle and solidify in your mind.
Yeah, it's like explaining, at least for me, like explaining the depths of compression in like 15 minutes
Yeah.
and, in all the ways that it could be used. It's kind of like, it's like, okay, well, you just do this for vocals. And it's like, well, I tried that. And it's like, well, what kind of vocals are it? It's like, oh, it's like a really high pitched operatic person. Like, oh, okay, well, that's a totally different
Yeah.
conversation there, or I was doing it for pop. I was doing it for jazz. I was doing it for, so it's,
Well, it is funny because you can look at like a YouTube video that explains every parameter on the compressor in 5 minutes, and you're like, that's all it takes to learn compression.
Yeah.
But one thing I always stress with the people in my class, and a lot of like, I do this program after school where I'm teaching them how to use Live and Push, this high school students, and some of them have no musical knowledge at all. Like they
Yeah.
don't know like that there's quarter notes and eighth notes in a bar of music. Like it's, just brand new language to them. And it's always important for me to like remember to like just say like, a lot of these things that we're talking about take a lifetime to master. They might even seem
Yeah.
simple on the surface, but take something like compression. Like I'm still figuring that out, and I've been doing it forever. And it's still like the more and more I learn it, the more subtle it gets, and the more detailed. Whereas, when I first started, it was just like, all right, like gain reductions all the way up. So cool, I'm compressing.
Right.
And then, you move on, but you realize like that the art of it, I guess, starts to emerge. And it's one of those things, just takes you can learn and keep getting deeper your whole life. We do like a
Yeah.
week or two of synthesis in the course. And it's like a week or two?
Yeah.
Like, come on, I've been doing this like almost half my life or a third of my life, and it's still new. It's still
Yeah.
fascinating. I still get surprised when I turn certain knobs and add certain, oscillators in, and who knows what's going to happen. It's a lot, and that can sometimes I think that can be a turnoff for people. That's where they throw their hands in the air, just when they understand how far the road can go.
Right. Yeah. I think, yeah. So depending, they get it in their head that it's this quick road. And I've had to tell people, I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna explain this to you, but you've got to like go home and spend weeks and weeks. I even break it down for them. I'm like, okay, if we're doing a 2-hour class for 10 weeks, that's 200 hours. Wait, that's not 200 hours. Is that? I don't know, math. So like we only have a limited amount of time to do this, right? And if you only spend the time we're doing in class, where a lot of it is lecture and there's some hands-on, you're not really getting a lot of benefit. You have to go home and use this. And then I tell them also, especially when I do one-on-ones and people get discouraged, and I say what you said. It's like, this is something that I'm still working on, and I've been doing this for a while. And it sometimes like your ear doesn't even develop. I remember I watched a video where like Q-Tip heard a soul song, and then he was able to figure out like where he was going to loop it and chop it up just by listening to it real time. And he goes, he just came back in on the record, like move the needle to where he wanted it to be after listening to the whole song, and is able to chop it up. And I thought, oh, that would be amazing to be able to do that. That'll be like the pinnacle if I could ever hear a song and know exactly how I'd like to chop it up. And that took like 4 years for me to like hear a song and go, oh, that's exactly what I'd like to do. Or like you said, hear what compression actually is doing, or hear the subtleties of saturation, because you don't even know what to listen for. Like an instructor can't jump into your own head and train your brain to hear these subtle nuances, and like before I really started trying to understand mixing and stuff, I never really paid attention to sound. But at some point I started being able to like hear my wife's phone ringing underneath the pillow in the bedroom while we were watching TV. She's like, how did you hear that? I don't really know, but my ears have kind of become very, very sensitive. And it's like, that takes time. And, I think people have to be willing to, like you say, put in the work and take the time to be able to grow. And some people are really awesome and, can pick up an instrument or hear something right away. But most of us kind of takes time.
Yeah, it is a time thing, and it's a training, and it's a weird like unconscious thing, I think, sometimes too, where I think it's repetition, and honestly a lot of it's like that 10,000 hour principle,
Yeah.
to become a
Yeah.
master. And I always have the feeling like this: you never really master this stuff. You just keep getting incrementally better. But when you think about like the 10,000, I did the math on this once. I don't have it handy, but like 10,000 hours. If you're working at something 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, it takes years to get to that. And
Yeah.
um, it's probably, unless you have a specific job that this is your day job, say, you're probably not getting those 8 hours a day, 5 days a
Right.
week. So it's an investment in time and patience and perseverance.
Yeah. P-
Good, a lot of
People
good
always
things to
ask
work
me,
on.
yeah. People ask me like, "Oh, well, how did you like for programming drums or just basic finger drumming?" They're like, "Oh, how did you get good at this?" And I was like, "Well, I started out as a drummer." And they're like, "Well, how did you get good at that?" And I was just like, "A lot of crying." That's what I tell people. It's like you just play. I think you were talking with Sam from Melodics. It's just like
Yeah.
you play, and then when you try to get that, and of the snare in there, like I could not do that. And I would try to play a beat, and then the 2 and 4, and then get the and with the snare. I would just cry, and
Yeah.
then I would wipe my tears, and then start over again. And so as I'm like, you just gotta keep going. Like you're gonna suck, but you've got to push through that suckiness. And I think for me, the hard thing is like at the age I'm at now, when you're trying to do all these cool things, like whether it's on a synth or which I'm not that great at, keyboards, or on guitar, which I'm not that great at, to just be like, you suck at this. It's okay. Just spend time with it. And just like the other things that you've gotten better at, you'll just get better. You just got to actually spend time with it. Else you'll just continue to, like, I don't cry as much anymore, but but you'll quote unquote cry every time you pick up this thing if you don't spend any time with it.
Yeah,
So,
very true. I mean, I literally remember the day I sat down. I mentioned this to Sam from Melodics, where I was able to I was able to do like more with my foot than I was with my right hand on the hi hat.
mhm.
It was just doing the end. It was like an eighth note or something. And I remember, like, once I got it, it was like a time machine back to when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I'm riding my two-wheel bike without the training wheels, and you're like, oh my God, doing it. And then as soon as you realize you're doing it, you fall off your bike. And I messed up
Right.
the beat, but like all of a sudden, like, I did it. I have it, and it's like that breakthrough moment is so big. Like when you get those, and it really is like just knocking down a wall. I mean, it happens to me so
Yeah.
much with uh, if I'm learning a song on guitar, say, which is my main instrument, I'd say that like suddenly you like, I think like once you start to learn it and you do it, suddenly like you feel the space between the notes more, instead of like it's
Mhm.
like all these fast notes that sounds like craziness at first. Once you kind of get it, you realize there is a space. It's small, but you see
Right.
it more.
Yeah, I've never really thought about that. Like it is true though. Like as you're saying that, I was just kind of thinking through things. And it's like it seems like this daunting task and there's all this craziness going on. But then when you break it down, and even if, which one thing that I always recommend to people is load up a song in live, loop the section you're not good at, and then just half the time.
Yeah.
But then you can kind of like hear the nuances, and you just kind of like, oh, it's just ba-na-nu, 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 ba-na. And then you just kind of get that motion halftime, then just kind of bring it up. Then you're ba-na-nu, na-na-nu, 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 na-nu, ba-na-nu, na-na-nu, 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 na-nu, ba-na-nu, and you're kind of like, oh, I kind of feel the vibe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've never really thought about that before.
That's something I liked to do. It was always hard to get the guys in the band to do it, but I liked playing the songs a lot slower and like holding it, because a lot of times if you play them slow, by the end of the song you're playing at the normal tempo. but
Right.
but to play it slow, you really feel like where the hits are, where the space is, and where you know um you might be rushing things or slowing things down, and you can really just craft it much more. But that's like
It's super.
that's practice. You know,
Yeah.
it's so much more fun to jam or just noodle. But like that's like the work of it. You know, okay, let's sit here, let's put on the metronome and just
Right.
go and, do our reps. It's like working out or something.
Playing slow is hard
It is hard
because
because
you can slur through just about anything,
yeah.
especially if you have distortion. But it's like play that slowly on an acoustic guitar. You're like, oh, what?
Uh-huh. Yeah, do it slow and then all of a sudden you have to like really get it right. Um and I learned so much starting to take martial arts, and I was really surprised at how much it connected with things like music. And like there's like a lot of times when like if you're learning a move or something or a technique, you can do it real fast and it looks impressive. But then you
Right.
do it slow and you realize I didn't really grab his hand right. I didn't have the wrist the right way. And something my teacher would always say is slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So when you do it slow, you can do it smooth. And then as you can do it smooth, then you can do it fast. And it's so true with music. If you can do it slow, then you just slowly bring it up and it's just then you're doing it nice and smooth and fast. It's practice and takes time, but that's like quality work when you're practicing. I think when you're just kind of
Yeah.
like fumbling through it, maybe it ties into riding a bike too. It's easy to go fast on the bike, but to ride real
Yeah.
slow is hard.
Yeah. You'll have no control. You're looking good for a while until you run into a fence going really fast.
Right. But I think even
Yeah.
like when you're first learning to ride a bike, like um, as soon as you feel that first wobble, you fall. But
Yeah.
once you get it, you start to feel the space and the like threshold of like, oh, I can lean a little bit, I can wobble a little bit before I lose control. And you learn where
Right.
those boundaries are.
that always that always reminds. So I learned how to ride a bike by saying I couldn't ride a bike. I
How
didn't
do you
I
mean?
didn't learn how to I didn't learn how to ride a bike until I think I was like 9 years old or something.
Uh-huh.
I was just afraid, and I was at my cousin's house, and my dad said I was walking the bike because I think my cousin had broken her leg or something like that. And so I'm walking her bike, and my dad's like, "Why aren't you riding the bike?" I was like, "Well, I don't know how to ride a bike." And he just said, "Get on the bike." I was like, "I can't ride a bike." So I get on the bike and I start pedaling. And as I pedal away from him, I'm going, "See, I can't ride a bike. I really suck at this." And I was like, "Wait, I'm riding a bike. Holy crap, I'm riding a bike." And then I just started like riding around them in circles. And that's how I learned
That's
how
so
to ride a
funny.
bike. Just
It's that like kind
trying to
of
prove them
holy
wrong.
crap, I'm doing it moment.
Yeah.
I can't
But
believe
it
I'm
just
doing it.
happened immediately.
Yeah, that's
Instead
cool.
of-
You're
but
just
I guess I
ready.
was 8 or 9 years old, so I should, it's different from being 3 or 4 or whatever. Most people. When did you learn how to ride a bike?
Uh, this used to be like a very like something I knew very well. Like this is like your bad. I learned to ride my bike at 7. I learned when I was 5. I learned when I was, like when you're a kid, it's like one of those like uh, what do they call them? Like kind of a
Rite of
milestone.
passage. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
rite of
right. Yeah,
passage.
milestones.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like one of those things like on your journey to becoming a big kid and an adult. But I think I was probably like around 7, I think. What's that, like second grade, first, second grade?
Oh, okay.
Somewhere
Then I
around
was.
there.
I guess I wasn't too old. I think I
Well,
was in third,
that's
fourth.
that's a lifetime in kid years.
Yeah. So many people have been riding all over the place, and you're just kind of like, "Hey, wait for me."
Wait up, guys.
I couldn't leave my block anyway without my brother, so riding a bike was not like
Uh-huh.
that liberating of an experience. Like some people, I don't know. You're in Long Island, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you like. I was in Queens, so my mom was like, "You stay on this block, you don't leave." So
Right.
like if I lived in the country or if I live like where I ended up moving to Texas, like that would have been such a liberating thing, and a reason to figure out how to ride a bike without training wheels. But I was like, I'm not really going to go anywhere. So I guess that was part of the reason, besides
Uh-huh.
being afraid.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a big difference. Like we were allowed to ride around the blocks a little bit. Um, yeah, we didn't go really far, but when you're a kid, it feels like you're going
Right.
forever.
Then you go back home and you're like, oh, that corner store was just literally around the corner.
Yeah. I remember the day I rode my bike there. Felt like a hero.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? So I have a announcement that I would like to make.
Oh, all right.
This
Drum
kind of
roll.
goes with what we've been saying is just getting things done. So like 2011 or 2010 or something like that.
Mhm.
I did this thing called lunch breaks where I made at least a track every week for a year.
Oh, cool.
And so in 2018, I'm gonna do reintroduce lunch breaks and do them live. So it'll be 1 hour. I'm gonna try to
Nice.
do it at lunch. Once I find my work schedule, I'll figure out exactly what that's gonna be. But probably like Thursday
Uh-huh.
at lunchtime, Pacific time. So I'm gonna be doing lunch breaks, and so I'll just like make the track on the spot for an hour and try to complete the whole track in 1 hour. But I'm
Under
saying
the
it
fire
publicly so
of
that
a
it'll
live
force me
audience. Yeah, there you go. That's
to,
that
to
you
do it.
have maybe one day you'll do it out of fear that Brian's gonna send you a tweet. Didn't see your
Yeah,
lunch
you're gonna
break
send me
today,
a tweet.
Josh. What happened, man?
And then the
Social
3 people
pressure.
like, I know that guy. Who have listened to this will go, hey, you said you were gonna do lunch breaks. I'm like, oh yeah, I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
So
Hey, that helps. You know, that's the making a commitment, and then like the the fear of letting people down, or like public embarrassment or shame.
we need that sometimes, I
And you're gonna
think
do it
it's kind
under fire of a live audience, so like a live stream.
yeah,
That's
a
awesome.
live stream because I've like when I did it before, I would just put them on SoundCloud, and I think that was back in the day when I don't know what's acceptable these days, but most people are like, oh, okay, cool song. But now people kind of want to see stuff and like they want to hear and see stuff. So if you just
Yeah.
put a song up every week, I think most people would be like, oh, okay, whatever. But if they get to see it, maybe that'll be a little bit more tantalizing to people. I'm still trying to figure out what I am willing to do and what people want. So that's kind of my journey of
Right.
trying to entertain people. It's like, what do you want? And then what am I willing to do to meet that need, Because I just feel like things are a little bit more audio visual now.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that are kind of they're fans and also artists or hobbyists, and so it's kind of, and I'm sure you get people like this who, they're like, I'm not really trying to do anything, but I get the packs and I like using them and I have fun making songs. And then you have people who are, full-time artists who like come to your site and download your stuff. And so
Right.
I'm kind of hoping to get some of those type of people. Some people are just like, hey, I'd like to see the process and I like his music. And some people who are kind of like essentially students that are like, oh, I get to peer behind the curtain, and then hopefully they'll see something they like, or they'll be like, this guy's a fraud.
That's the secret fear, I think, right?
Yeah.
I tell you what,
Yeah.
I was doing a live stream. I forget what the heck. I was making a pack or something, and I had like 10 minutes to go, and somebody said, "All right, now you got to make a track with it." And I was like, "I can't do that in 10 minutes." I was like, "Well, let's see," and
Right.
it wasn't a full track or anything, but I was surprised at like what I was able to do. And I'm sure on another day it might have been terrible, but it was just really empowering, and it was that pressure. It was that like, all right, got to do it. Let's go. Let's try it. Let's just see what
Yeah.
happens. Last
Yeah, I think the
January,
pressure pushes stuff.
yeah, totally. Like you got to do it. Last January, I got in on the January thing, about halfway through the month. So
Yeah.
January is like you got to just like post a jam. That was just it. It doesn't have to be good. Just post a jam. I'm not sure if that came from Cuckoo. You know Cuckoo, the that
Yeah, yeah,
guy,
it's
the music personality.
yeah.
um, so
Is he a totally different person in reality?
I don't know yet. I want to
Oh,
talk to him
okay.
on the podcast if I can. So I'll let you know. Um,
That would be good.
but I got it from him anyway. He was doing it, and I was watching him. I was like, damn it, I got to do this. So I got in on it and started just doing a jam every day. And there were some days where it was like 11:45 at night. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do it. Whatever. I guess I'm not gonna. I missed it. Then I was like, no, I'm doing it. And sometimes cool stuff happened, but it was really empowering in that, like, if you decide to do it, you can do it. And
Yeah.
I think that, and ever since then, and I probably I've spoken about this a few times, the January thing, and here it is in December. I haven't done anything, but I think it's a great idea. It's something I do want to do myself. Just a some sort of like regimented thing. One of the guys I spoke to in one of the earlier podcasts, Ben Burns, does a 2-hour track challenge every week, and every week he's on there doing a track for 2 hours, and he's live streaming it, and it's awesome.
Nice.
And like you can see him, like he's getting really comfortable in that kind of work zone, and he's like really good at these like sprints for doing a track, and it's helping it. I think it's helping his work. He's really productive, like scoring video games and stuff.
I
So
think,
it's
yeah, that's the hard thing, is the fear of not getting into the groove of being like, what if what if it takes me 4 months to get into a groove? So that's like, oh, this first 4 months were extremely brutal, but yeah, it's just kind of the process, I guess. Just you'll find it at some point, or I'll find it at some point and be like, maybe the first one will be awesome, and then the second one won't, and then it'll just kind of go. I remember Stephen Colbert on his podcast that he had right before he started just the regular late show.
yeah.
He said that, when he did the Colbert Report, it was just like you just had to do the show, and
Mhm.
whatever the show was, you did it, and then it was over because you have a show to do tomorrow. And so I thought that was really profound, because I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I could, I just do some work, and then when it's over, and just move on, whether it's daily or monthly or weekly or every 2 years you release an album. It's just like, just make it and then move on, because you got more work to do.
Yeah.
So
It's nice.
I have to try to tell myself every day.
Well, what got me to do the January thing really was the like kind of asterisk to it. That was, it doesn't have to be good.
Yeah.
And that made me feel a lot better. Like, cause the point isn't if it's amazing every time. And I think if you work with that expectation that you're going to be amazing every single time, I mean, you're never going to live up to that. You're never gonna. It's just not gonna happen. I remember reading a Guitar World interview with Paul McCartney back when I was a kid. It was like the '90s. It came out, and the interviewer was kind of being a jerk. He's like, "So Paul, you wrote Eleanor Rigby yesterday, and then you wrote this crappy Wing song. I think it was called like Hell on Wheels or something, or Hell in Wheels."
I love that song.
Yeah, I don't even know this. It might not be the song, whatever song it
No,
was.
I know, but I'm like,
That's funny.
Yeah.
But he said, he's like, look, as an artist, like, I'm not going to always be at my best every single time I create art. And, his answer was great. And like, part of me wanted him to just be like, F you, man. But he was just like, look, like, that's part of the journey, is that, like, some days I do my best work, and some days, my work is not up to par with my best. And, the point is I just keep coming back to it. And it was a really like elegant way. Like you wouldn't have blamed him for like saying something nasty to the guy, but it was pretty cool the way he handled it. And it was such a good point too, because, I think every time we go to work, we want to like have like, this is my hit. Here it comes, folks.
Right.
But that if you leave that as your kind of like gauge of whether or not you did well, like you're gonna burn out, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely I've heard a couple of things that Paul McCartney has said like that, and I think the other thing is like there's like I said, I was like, "Oh, I like Helen Wheels." But I think each songs just appeal to different people,
Right.
and sometimes people like that guy said, he's thinking from this kind of Beatles like epic brain,
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like, let's say elite art people. They go, "Oh, well, that's not art. This is art." This is a great painter. That one's not a great painter. And it's like, well, what lens are you viewing it with? Like, I haven't liked any Adam Sandler movies since like 2004, but he still keeps making them, and there's people who like them. And so it's like, who am I to be like, he should stop making movies? It's like there are people that are enjoying it, and he can do. I actually like him in the last 15 years in more serious movies than I have in comedic movies.
Yeah.
But people think like with Paul McCartney, like, oh, he needs to write these love songs. Why is he writing, let's say, a protest song, or why is he writing this? And I think that's always the hard thing for artists when people just pigeonhole them as like, oh, you're a comedian, so if you do a serious movie, I'm not going to like it. Or you're supposed to write pretty songs, so when you write a fun song, you're supposed to be serious and you're supposed to be talking about love or whatever. It's like you don't have the liberty to do that. And I think that's what usually causes a lot of problem for listeners, is they kind of want to put an artist in a box in a way. But
Right. You
we all do
expect
it.
certain things. Yeah. Well, yeah, like it's funny you say it. Punch Drunk Love was like one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies. And when Jim
Yeah.
Carrey did the Spotless Mind, the Eternal Sunshine, I forget
Oh
exactly
yeah,
the
yeah.
title. That was cool, and that was totally different. Truman Show. I was like, yeah, like I love
Yep.
that.
Another.
But and that's something I loved about the Beatles. Like they had their yesterdays, they had in my life, and all these like great classics. But then they had fun too, and like it's not every song has to be like this, major important thing. Like they did a lot of songs that were just them kind of fooling around, and they were fun
Yeah.
and they were cool. It's just like a different side.
There's completely scatterbrained. Like when you just, if you really listen, if you take out the fact that they are the Beatles and just said, "Hey, listen to this album,"
Yeah.
somebody go, why did they put these songs together? Like, why is it a bunch of weird songs and then like that Mr. Kite song? You're like, what is this doing in here?
Yeah, that's a weird one,
Octopus's Garden and all these different things mixed in with all of these love songs and all these, doo-wop songs. So,
Yeah. That's part of the journey, and for me, it just makes it all the more interesting. When like an artist can do that, and there's all these different sides, and then you don't have to only listen to them when you're in that one mood or that one feeling.
right. Like, yeah, I can't when I want to like relax. I can't, well, I guess some people can, but I'm like, I can't listen to Pantera. They don't have any relax. I guess the beginning of Cemetery Gates, maybe I could relax to that, but
You got like 60 seconds. Yeah, but if you want to like say work out or go for a run or you're pissed, like right on,
right.
fired up.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. I'm coming near the end of my time, and it's funny, like, and this happens to me a lot when I speak to people. Like, we have so much to talk about. I thought we'd be getting into like, say, like Live 10, and like I'm sure you're just as excited about that as I am, and all that
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
But
Wavetable all the way.
yeah, right. But there's so many things to talk about and catch up on. It's been really nice talking to you, man.
Yeah, man, it's been fun. Yeah, we'll have to get more, I guess, heady maybe.
Yeah.
If
Well,
you
we
ever
can do
want
it
me to
again.
come on again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, I think we have a lot of stones we didn't even overturn yet.
Yeah.
Is there a specific place you like to send people? Is it theproducerskitchen.com? Is it Josh Spoon?
Yeah, joshspoon.com. In 2018, I'm going to spend more time on that. But really, like for my music, it's joshspoon.bandcamp.com. Or you can go to Josh Spoon. I'm going to be, as I do the lunch breaks, I'm going to be putting more stuff on there, like kind of blog wise. And then if you want educational stuff, theproducerskitchen.com. and then the YouTube for the Producer's Kitchen. You can, find me through either one of those places if you want education or music.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well,
And
thanks
I'm
so
on,
much for your
got some
time.
stuff on Spotify, stuff like that.
Okay, we can just look up Josh Spoon.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll end this, then we'll say our goodbyes.
Yeah.
All right. So
Bye, everyone.
yeah, goodbye, everyone. Thanks for listening. This is my talk with Josh Spoon. Been great speaking with him. We've been, like I said, bouncing off each other for a while. It's nice to actually take some time and sit down and talk. So check him out, joshspoon.com, theproducerskitchen.com, and on Spotify, Josh Spoon. So thanks a lot, Josh.
Yeah. Thanks.
Take care,
Thanks for
everyone.
having me.